All right, hello friends, whoever might be watching this, whether it's today, tomorrow, or 20 years from now. Today we're going to build a budget PC. And what we are going to build today, I've got a 12th Gen i3, which as of right now, this is the latest and greatest from Intel. Whoever gets this PC will have room to be able to upgrade it and then even go to next year's processors when they release. So this is the 12100F i3 processor. It's a 4-core 8-thread processor. I'm building an entry-level gaming PC, so this will be absolutely perfect for someone who's just really on a budget. They want to get something that they might be able to upgrade later on, and it'll be a great starter PC for them. I want to say altogether, those parts for this build cost me like $500. But yeah, so I got the 12th Gen i3 12100F. This is the actual processor here. I know it's so hard for you guys to see, but this is it's a nice little processor for the price. I mean, this outperforms a i7 from just like 5 years ago, which is ridiculous. An i3 is able to perform an i7. But it's just how fast and how powerful they are now. And then the cooler that I'm going with is just the Intel stock cooler. It's the brand new one, so it actually looks kind of cool. It says Intel on it. It's got this little blue line on it. Intel got inspired by AMD, who actually had a really nice stock cooler, and they decided to redesign theirs to make it look quite a bit better. And it actually doesn't look bad. The only thing that would be cooler is if this little blue line just had a little bit of RGB, a little bit of LED lights on it. Nothing over the top, just something nice and small, and it would bring it home where Intel would be like, yeah, look how cool we are. We got lights on our stock cooler. Yeah. And then for the storage, I'm going with, I've got, you actually can't see it, but I've got a 500 gigabyte M.2 drive. I don't even remember the name of the company. I want to say it might be Team Group. I got it online on Amazon for like $40. So this would be 512 gigabytes of storage for the system. For the RAM, we are going with the T-Force Zeus DDR4. It's a 16 gigabytes at 3,000 megahertz speeds. Was it megahertz? I don't remember. Anyway, 3,000 speeds, which is pretty good. For just good for gaming. This was a good deal. I got them 16 gigabytes for like $47 on Amazon. Not a bad deal at all. And then I also have this Antec. Antec has been around for a long time making PC cases and whatnot. But this is an RGB Antec fan I'm going to put on the back of it. This case that I've got here actually has a stock basic fan that just came with it. I'll put that on the front, so that way it's got some suction and it's got the exhaust, so it'll get a good little bit of airflow. But for that i3 system I'm throwing in there, you don't need like major airflow. You just need enough just to get all the hot air out, because nothing over here is going to be too powerful where it's going to cause the system to really overheat. So I'm going to put this in the back of the fan, and then here's the case that I bought. This is a case. This is coming by a company called AeroCool. It's a $50 case. It's a mid-tier case. I've used this a couple times. My own personal nice build I put in this case, and I really do like this case. It's a nice budget case. It'll hold the majority of stuff unless you're going like high end with your graphics card and whatnot, and it turns out to be like a a 3 fan card or whatever. It won't work for something like that, but anything up to a 2 fan, it'll be just fine. You can put aftermarket coolers in here, stock coolers, just so you've got room for a small AIO. The front comes off, so you can put fans on the front. So it actually has a little bit of options where you can put stuff in here, but it's not too expensive where it's over the top. And this is a mid-sized case. It's a smaller version of the mid-sized case. They've got the bigger ones, and those give you more room to do stuff with, but they're just really huge and clunky. I like something that's a little bit smaller, and I find that this kind of works for me as the best size. Even though I actually could have gone with a little bit of a smaller case, because technically the motherboard we're using is a micro ATX, so there are some cases that are a little bit shorter than this one. We actually could have put it in if we wanted to, but I got this this case on a good sale for like $45 or so. So I've used it several times. I like it. It works just fine, and you can even modify it. I've screwed holes in the front where if you put a higher end system in, you need more airflow, you can do that with it. And the cool thing is it's got this little strip on the front right here that's RGB, and it's giving you a little switch, you can change it around. So that's pretty cool. And then I have a 650 watt power supply that's in here. It's an 80 plus. It's made by a company called Ares Gaming or something like that. It's not the nicest power supply you can buy, but it's not the cheapest either. Like I said, I got it for like around 35 to 40 bucks. And it'll easily be enough to last this computer for several years without any issues. You don't have too many problems these days with power supplies acting wonky unless it's like a weird off brand or like something like that. And the cool thing is whoever I sell it to them, I make sure I let them know, I said, hey, clean this thing out every now and again, so that way you'll get a longer lifespan out of it. So also, let me go ahead and put this down on the ground because we're not going to need this just yet. Here is our motherboard, which is it's a micro ATX motherboard. It's a H610F motherboard. And this is the motherboard that we're going to be using for our system. So that's all of the parts that we have. Now we're just going to go ahead and put it all together and see how it looks. So pull the motherboard out here. Put this, and it's really cool how they gave us a little mat. I'm actually going to save that and reuse it. I think I got this motherboard online for somewhere in the range of like, I want to say like 90 bucks, which isn't bad. If you're doing just like a lower tier build, it's more than enough. Alright, so this is also why I have my handy dandy flashlight. So whenever it comes to that small print and text, you can actually see what you're looking for. There's a little arrow here that I'm looking for, and it's not here, so it might be on the case itself. This one does not seem to have it. Because if you install it incorrectly, you can actually bend the pins on here. I don't see it. I know it's here. I remember it on mine. Just don't know where. Alright, there's my processor. I just had it. There it is. Yeah, this one has the corner piece. It's supposed to be one of these that's marked differently. Sometimes it's just a really pain just to see which one it actually is. Usually it's this one right here on this side. Oh, here it is. I got it upside down. My bad. Each motherboard's built differently, so you got to be very careful. But yeah, there's a little arrow on here, and you kind of match it up with the little arrow that's supposed to be here, so that way you know to install it properly. So you don't bend any of the pins and cuss and end up having to either buy a new one or exchange for your money back and all that stuff. So I'm gonna have to lift this top up. Got the corner piece right here. Oops, I'm hearing a manhandling thing. All right. Then you kind of just drop it in there, nice and gentle. And when it pops in, you're going to make sure you can't wiggle it around too much so you know it's in place. We're going to drop our front cover down. And secure it here. And this little case, I always save these. I have a couple of them now in case I ever need to return the motherboard. It's a good thing to have so that way you've got extra if you need it. And then next we're going to apply our thermal paste. Now there's a little bit of it on the stock cooler, and I'm pretty sure it might be enough, but I always like to add a little bit extra just to be on the safe side, because thermal paste is something that is very important for your computer to have, because it transfers the heat away from the processor. And so we want a good healthy amount of thermal paste, not too much, but we want to add just enough to make sure that this computer, at least for a couple of years, I mean, I'm pretty sure that most people are just like, what's thermal paste? What you going to do with that? Well, unfortunately, that's one of the reasons why I add a healthy amount, just in case the person who buys it never messes with that. And they might get a couple extra years out of it because of me adding just a little bit extra or something. I don't know. I'm just doing it for the heck of it, but I do that with all my PCs. I'm very superstitious with that. Here we go. So add just a little bit here, a little dab. And then next we're going to put our stock cooler on. This is our Intel stock cooler here. Now, the next thing you want to do is find where your CPU fan header is, which is this one right here, because the CPU cooler fans don't get plugged in right here to that spot. Now, I know you guys can't actually see the motherboard that I'm working on, so I just have to take my word for it. But when you have the motherboard placed right, which means this is going to be the part that faces out, this is where your RAM's going to be, your graphics card is going to install right here, and you got your CPU placed in properly. The CPU fan is always, the header for it's always going to be right here towards the top, on the top of the RAM. So that'll help make it easier for you to find it. 99% of all motherboards that I've worked with so far, that's where they have been. It might have been one or two that might be a little bit different, but I don't remember offhand, so don't actually take my word 100% on that one, but that's pretty sure on all new motherboards, that's where it's all going to be. So, and then with the CPU cooler, there's little holes in the motherboard that you want to line it up with, and that's what you're actually going to put it on with. You line up with the holes, and then you're going to push. These newer ones are so much easier to use than the older ones. And boom. And the next thing you want to do is be able to pick it up and shake it around and make sure that, you know, all the pieces are in. You can also look at the back. You can kind of see how they clip into place. Now, if you're going with like an AMD processor or like an older Intel processor, the coolers are going to be a little bit different on how they plug in. Sometimes you have to have a little bracket you put in back here and you screw it in with screws. But the newer Intel ones, they're nice because they just kind of clip into place. Now, the AMD ones are probably a little bit better in some regards because of the fact that you actually screw them in place so you know it's going to stay, while these are just plastic clips, which could break if you mishandle it too much, you know. So you just got to be very careful with that kind of stuff. So, and then we're going to take our little wire that plugs into the motherboard here, kind of just run along this heatsink here. And then let me go ahead and cut this little piece off right here. This little tag just kind of getting in the way, and I'm going to cut it off. All right, and now we're going to plug in our CPU fan header. Boom, that's done. Look at that, we're coming along. You're building a PC already, folks. You're geniuses, you're tech geniuses, all of you. All right, so next thing we're going to do is install the RAM. Now, the RAM is probably the easiest thing to install on any computer. So if you had a computer with 8 gigabytes of RAM, you want to upgrade it, it should be the easiest thing to do most of the time. Now, some laptops can be a pain in the butt because they might bury it a little bit, but usually it's, you know, you open it back up and boom, you got 2 RAM sticks. The RAM is for your multitasking ability. So the more tasks you have going at once, the more RAM you want, so that way it has the extra storage or, you know, memory capability to actually use it. Your processor plays a little bit of part in that too, but also tells you how many tasks you can do, but really how fast it can do the tasks. So you can think of like your processor almost like a car engine. You've got your i3, your i5, your i7, and then your i9, which is like the big dog way up there. But, you know, for most people, if it's just very basic stuff, an i3 can get you by if you're on a budget. If you are doing a little bit of work on it, I'd probably go up towards like an i5, i7, depending on the type of work that you're doing. But like if you're just building like a basic gaming PC like this will be just fine for gaming, because really your heavy load's going to be coming mostly from your graphics card. And here I am just jumping ahead of stuff, and let me go ahead and install the RAM first, and we'll talk about the graphics card later, okay? This RAM is in there really good. Now these RAM sticks, if you can swipe a credit card, you can put RAM in. You're going to notice in here there's a little bitty tiny notch, and that's how you're going to know how to line it up to put it in. Now this computer, this motherboard, since it's a cheaper motherboard, it only has room for 2 RAM sticks, but you know, so if someone wanted to upgrade, they'd have to buy all new RAM. Like say you want to go to 32 gigabytes, you have to buy 2 16 gigabyte sticks instead of just buying another 16 gigabyte stick, because most of your nicer motherboards will have 4 slots. This is a cheaper motherboard, so it only has 2 slots, but you still have room if you want to upgrade. But I'm putting in 16 gigabytes of RAM. That should easily be more than enough for anybody who's gaming or doing anything like that. Now, if they're going to go hardcore and like really go ham on this and like upgrade the daylights out of it, which I doubt they're really going to do, more than likely they're just going to buy the computer, play on it until it gets slow, then they'll put it in a closet somewhere, and then maybe they'll turn around and sell it or donate it at 10 years from now. That's the kind of the trend I see with most people. Now, if you're a techie person, hey, don't get me wrong, you guys know what you're doing more than I do. Not more than I do, but you guys know what you're doing, so you might actually get more use out of it, keep it for longer, upgrade it, that kind of thing. So with the RAM, this little empty slot, once you line it up here and here, you're just gonna kind of push it in there, line it up, push it down. You're gonna hear it click. That's gonna sound very painful sometimes. Get down. And so you're gonna push on it. I always push on the back end, then I push on the front end, make sure the little clip is pushed itself in. Now the RAM should be properly installed. Now sometimes it's not. I have yet to come across that problem. I've actually had more issues with bad RAM than I have not installing it properly. And I have another stick here, right here. It's just hiding from me. So we're going to line it up. Like I said, I always push the back end first. Just because for me, it just kind of works better that way. There, just going off here. Oh, I got it turned around backwards. Come on, baby. There we go. All right, once you get pushed all the way down, like I said, I push the back end first, and then I'll push the front end. It's locked into place. So we should be good on that regard. And then I had a little tiny baggie here for an M.2 screw. There you are. In our M.2, this is I just had it a little minute ago. There it is. These are your newer versions of hard drives. So they haven't stopped making hard drives. They still make them. They still use them, but I wouldn't recommend them for anything more than just backup storage because of how slow they are. So you had hard drives, which were these big clunky things that you'd pull out, and they'd have a tendency to go bad after a period of years because it actually has a spinning disc inside of it, think of it like a CD player, and it stored everything on the disc. And after a while, the discs have a tendency of just going kaput or breaking, cracking, that kind of thing. Then they went to SSDs, and 2.5-inch kind of replaced the traditional 3.5-inch hard drive for the main operating system and stuff. And now people are going to M.2s, and there's even a newer version of M.2s called NVMe, which has been available now for about 2 or 3 years, I guess. And the storage is going to last longer. It is going to, well, for what they say, it's going to last longer. It's going to be faster. It is faster. We know that for sure. Because even just like a cheap M.2 is probably 4 times faster than an SSD. An SSD is probably 2 or 3 times faster than your traditional hard drive. So if people have older computers at home that make that kind of noise, they have a traditional hard drive in it, which is going to be slower. It's going to make that noise. Even if you take an old computer and upgrade it with just a regular 2.5-inch SSD, you'd be amazed at the new life it'll give to that computer, even one that could be 10 years old. It'll start working better. You could take something that has like an old i7, like from 8 years ago, and upgrade the RAM to 8 to 16 gigabytes of RAM or even higher, even if it's just DDR3 RAM. And then add an SSD to it, you'd be surprised at the new life that computer will bring, and you'll probably get a couple more years out of it. Now, I mean, if you can build a modern computer, like I said, if you're not a gamer and you don't need a graphics card, you can build this thing for $350, and it'll be 4 or 5 times faster than the i7 from 8 years ago. So there's so many different options that people don't realize that you can use old stuff, you can upgrade it. Sometimes it's a little bit more expensive than just go ahead and get something new or build something new. You can go to Best Buy and get an i3 or Ryzen 3 system for like $400 or $500 on sale. So I mean, there's so many different options. Now, I always recommend building if you can, or paying somebody to have it built, because you get all better quality products for the most part, and you're guaranteed to pretty much kind of last longer because you're not using proprietary components. All right, so I love to talk and gab, and that's the reason why I'm doing it on camera, so somebody can watch me do it. And hey, maybe I might get a follower or a friend, or maybe $10 down the road, 5 years from now, when some like 2 or 3 thousand people might ever watch this thing. I don't know. We're just doing it for the hell of it. But yeah, so our SSD is actually going to install directly on the motherboard instead of being connected by a SATA cable, like a traditional SSD or hard drive. So, and that's the reason why it has so much faster speed. So, you got your RAM, you got your CPU cooler here, you got your RAM. Underneath that, you're going to see this little bitty like square thing underneath where the graphics card would plug in. This is the M.2 slot, and that's where you're going to install this right here. And that way, it's going to be a much cleaner computer build, and it'll look prettier when you get done with it too. So, once you find the slot that it goes into, you just kind of pop it in there. Let's see. It's right here. I see you. Click. And then all we gotta do is take this little screw out of this baggie here, and we can screw it down. Then she'll be ready to go. Yeah, I was like, tear the bag, might as well. Make it easier for myself. But yeah, so you're gonna have this bigger screw that's gonna screw down here at the bottom. That's gonna be kind of like the leg or the foot that the M.2 sits on, and then you got an even smaller screw that'll screw into that one, and that's actually how you're going to screw it down and hold itself down. So computer building has gotten so much easier these guys. You can do it, in a matter of an hour, maybe even 30 minutes if you're really fast at it. But I like to take my time with it because I enjoy it, and I want to savor every moment of it, just like a nice juicy steak. And we're going to screw the smaller screw into the bigger one, and that's actually going to hold the M.2 down, which is our storage. So here we go. We got our 12th Gen i3 plugged in, set up, ready to go. Got the thermal paste on there. We got the fan installed. We got it plugged in. We got 16 gigabytes plugged in and installed, and we got our 512 gigabytes of storage done. And we've been streaming now for 10 minutes, if that's somewhere in that range. I'm looking for the timer. I know there's one on here somewhere. Give me a second here. Oh well, anyways, which is nice and quick, just the way I like it. I think the hardest part is actually just getting all the parts together and doing the cable management. Like, that's the most complicated part of this whole computer build. The rest of it's like easy peasy, pumpkin squeezy, it's nothing. Alright, so now that we got our motherboard done, we're going to put this to the side for now, because now we're going to work on the case. I already have the power supply installed, which is really easy. You just take the back off. There's a little slot in the bottom, or if it's some cases, it'll be in the top. You'll see a big square hole. And you just kind of screw it in there, and boom, it's done. And then you have to route the cables all to the right spot. That's the part that takes the longest part, is routing all the cables and then making sure everything's plugged in properly. You know how carpenters say, measure twice, cut once. And cable management is where you measure twice, because you want to make sure that everything's done properly and everything's plugged in the right spot, because otherwise you don't want to hit the on button after you plug it in and everything goes or it doesn't do anything at all because you plugged in the wrong thing. Or even worse, forgot to plug something in. That's my favorite part. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull this big old honking case up, yeah? Oh, yeah. I need to put some music on next time. It's too quiet in here. I'm going to hide my face so you can't see me. What I'm doing here is I'm just going to take the side panels off this thing so we actually have access to the insides of it and can actually work on it. And I'm going to take the front panel off too, so you guys can see what it looks like when it's stripped down, bare naked. Yep. Doing a little bit of computer porn here on the computer screen today. But from now on, after my next stream, I'm going to figure out how I can do music in here too. Alright, screws are taken in. We're going to put that in a spot where we're not going to lose it, but I'm still going to forget where I put them. Okay, so one side panel done. Now, these computer cases that have the glass or acrylic side panels, when I'm playing with them and installing stuff, I always leave the plastic covering and wrap on the front of it so I don't scratch it up. Because the first 3 computers that I built, I was like, oh, let me strip everything down to the bare bones. And all of a sudden, I had scratched up acrylic and scratched up tempered glass. And then you go to try to sell that stuff, and someone goes and says, there's a scratch on it. I'm like, well, yeah, well, my dumb ass didn't do it right. That doesn't look good for you. Not good for you at all. Alright, so we're going to take off this other panel. Ooh, even that one's tightened on there. These are all supposed to be hand tightened, but they either have Hercules tighten them or they're tightening them with machines, which are no-nos. These screws are all hand screws. They're not meant to be torqued. These are cheap Chinese screws. They do not like any pressure. Now with these cheaper cases, you do have to use your fingernails to take the back panel off. But hey, it works, it gets the job done, and it doesn't cause any issues. So, alright, and now I'm going to take this front panel off too, where the pretty lights are. So this one you kind of have to manhandle a little bit because it just kind of pops off because it's got these little plastic clips. And you got to be careful because you don't want to go ham on it and tear it up, but I'm going to install the fan, so I figured it's easier just to rip the whole thing off to make it easier for myself. And look, my kiss is naked. It's butt naked. You can see all the wires and stuff. But yeah, there's the power supply down here at the bottom. Like you can see, it's a 650 watts, 80 plus rated. Oh, it's 80 plus bronze, so a little bit nicer. And the 80 plus is just the rating or certification for it. But yeah, so here's the 650 watt power supply. There's all the wires right here. This is the part that's the fun part, is I'm going to have to wire up all this right here, make it look like a... But yeah, you got plug in for your 24 pin. You're going to have, so your motherboard takes two power connectors. You have your 24 pin, and you have the smaller one on top, which is usually a 8 pin or 6 pin, I don't remember offhand. And then you'll have a plug-in for your graphics card, and that's all for the power, except if you, like me, and you also are installing extra fans. Not all of them plug directly into the motherboard. They actually have some older ones that are called MOLED connectors, which are probably some of the cheaper ones. I buy them just because they look pretty. I mean, you know, you can probably get a nicer fan and have better speed and all that kind of stuff, but for an i3 system, that's more than enough. I put 2 fans in there already, so we're good in that regard. That plugs in with these MOLED connectors. And then if you're also going to plug in like an SSD or a backup hard drive, if you need more storage for storing games, documents, photos, all that stuff, then you would plug it in with a SATA power connector like this. Now, there's other stuff that you can install that plug in with this as well. But I'm not really going to get into that because it's pretty advanced stuff and it's too much for, and I'm not even doing that with this, so there's no point in talking about it right now. But yeah, so down here you also have your hard drive bay. So if you want to install a backup hard drive, SSD, you know, you've got the option here. And there's also an SSD mounter here. This is about the size. It's a 2.5 inch SSD. You'll see these in laptops nowadays. Or actually, they probably switched over to M.2s now too. But yeah, for cheap storage, this is probably your best way to go. Because the hard drives are just, I don't know, they're old and clunky. SSDs have gotten so cheap. You get a 1 terabyte for like 60 or 70 bucks versus a 1 terabyte hard drive for like 50, and then the SSD speeds can be 4 times as fast. So I'm not going to be messing with backup hard drives unless somebody gives me one, then I'll throw it in a system as extra storage for somebody. But I don't really plan on buying the traditional hard drives because for me, I just, they kind of get to that point for me where I feel like they're antiquated. I don't have a use for them. But yeah, so what we're going to do now is take this fan off the back, install it down here in the front, so it'll be our suction fan. It's going to be out of sight because it doesn't have RGB on it. And we are going to take our one RGB fan, stick it right there in the back, because that's the one that's going to see. It's going to light everything and make it all look all pretty and stuff. And that'll help it to sell, make it easier. Oh, I never did talk about the graphics card that I'm using. I am using this bad boy right here. It's an older NVIDIA graphics card. It's the GTX 1050 Ti. I believe these came out around 2017 maybe? Don't quote me on that because I'm probably wrong. But it's an older graphics card. It's a 4 gigabyte graphics card. But for most of the popular games a lot of the kids are playing, like Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox, Call of Duty, some of that stuff. You can play this with this card. You can play most of those games. Now, some of the newer games, obviously, you have to turn down the settings, but you can play pretty much any game with it almost. And so this is a good graphics card. It's a budget graphics card. If I was going to spend more than 150, I'd probably buy a newer one. But for anything less than 150, I just buy used because you can get a decent one that's better than something you'd buy brand new. I got this for about, I believe, $75. I bought it from somebody locally nearby who had upgraded his graphics card, and so he was getting rid of this one and gave me a good deal on it. But easily you can find, 1050s, 1060s, 1650s, or if you go AMD, they got the 570, the 580 for $150 or less. Most of these cards. Now, obviously, something like this, I wouldn't pay over $100 for it because of, hey, we're sitting on the verge of the new 4000 series and the new AMD cards coming out this year, next year. So, but if you're on a budget, hey, 1050 is not a bad card for a starter or someone who's just doing light gaming. But yes, go ahead and take this fan out, and then we'll install it in the front. And then after that, we shall also start putting in our motherboard, and then the fun part of all the wiring. I love the wires. I'm actually getting pretty good at it, I want to say. I take pride in doing it, especially when I don't have to worry about installing an SSD. You know, I have one I need to get rid of. It's a lower tier one. And so with that one, I'll probably just install it in a cheaper system than this one and throw in a backup hard drive, which I do have one right now that somebody gave me, and use that as the backup storage. So they get like a 120 gig boot drive for their Windows, which will make that fast and run quick. And then they can use the backup for like their games library and stuff like that. Right, now the fan is taken off. We are actually going to install that down here towards the bottom. This is going to be our suction fan. What it's going to do is it's going to pull air in, and then the exhaust fan, the RGB one putting on the back, is going to shove all the air out. So that way you've got good air circulation. Because CPUs and graphics cards, they love to get hot, especially when you're working them to death. You're running a super heavy program, or you're gaming, or these things have a tendency to get hot. Now, the i3 one, not so much compared to like an i5 or an i7 or an i9, but I'm sure if you work the devil out of it, it'll probably get some good temperatures on it. But that's not the goal. We're not aiming to try to get these things hot. We try to keep them cool. Now, I am not a liquid cool person. I have a deathly fear of water near my electronics, even if it's in a tube. So I will probably never really use a liquid cool system unless they, well, I don't know if they'll ever make a safe one, but unless they make one that I like, and I have yet to see one that I like. And they're too complicated. They just add so much extra wiring and extra stuff you have to hook up, and I like to try to keep it simple with these computers, so that way we've got less issues with them. Because the less you install, the simpler it's installed, the less issues you're going to have with it. Not every single one, but in theory, that's how the science works. It's almost like Toyota. They keep it simple, so that way they don't have any issues with it down the road and having to replace all this fancy stuff. Unlike all of our friends in Europe who like to build these fast cars that are constantly needing maintenance and tune-ups and spark plugs changed and all this stuff because they can run fast. I get it, they're fast, but it doesn't mean that it's going to last long. If it does last long, you'll be spending a fortune on the mechanic, putting the kids through college. Okay. Alright, now that that's installed, that is going to go back here. Meow. Yeah, it could be a pinch point. Yeah, I'm not gonna fuck with that. I'm gonna get pinched when I put the case in. Yeah, and also it's just trying to figure out what's the best place to run all these wires. Because I like to try to keep them out of sight as much as possible, but sometimes you don't have a choice. Alright, so now that we got that one installed, we're going to install our RGB one. The little one with the pretty lights on it. And let's see here. We're also going to have to run the cable somewhere. I'm going to do it here. I have to go over. And we also need to install the I/O shield. What this is the plate that covers up all the imports on the back side of the motherboard. And that always gets installed right here. You always see that little square spot. You always know where the motherboard goes. Well, it's supposed to be easiest to install. Sometimes it wants to be a pain. Now this is sometimes painful to install because you're going to have to push it hard until you hear it clip into place. And even then it's not always 100% accurate. Some of the newer, nicer motherboards they come out with, they have what they call a built-in I/O shield. We don't have to worry about messing with the whole clicky side. There we go. Now I got it in place. And it just makes it a little bit easier to install, but they tend to be a little expensive as well. Alright, so let me get some screws out. Ah, I lost them. Overboard. Yeah, this is all the screws that came with the case, and these cover, everything under the sun. So you get extra screws for the motherboard, you get screws for the fans, you get screws for the crazy person you know, because they tend to lose their screws. Let's see here. Now the screws that we're looking for are going to be pretty big and bulky. Let me check out something here real quick. Alrighty. Now I know I got some in here. Now I got a whole screw container, whatnot, where I save all my extra screws. Here she is. This is the big dog galore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these screws, I'm going to dump them in here, and pull out what Daddy needs. Whee! They're all in there now. All nice and safe and toasty. Then we also got some tie wraps, which we're going to use to zip tie the wires together. So I need one of these. I need 4 of them. number 2. Number 3. That's not the right size. This one is. One more big dough. There we go. Now we got 4 screws. A 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. Now also when you're installing these fans, you need to install them properly. So sometimes the logo is going to be on the front like this one is, and other times the logo is going to be on the back. But pretty much when you see the back, the bracing right here, this little plastic black bracing, that tells you that's going to probably be the back of the fan. Wait, give me a second here. I'm having a retard moment. Yeah, I believe this is the front of the fan. It is, yeah. Yeah. At least I hope it is. All right, well, hopefully it is. If not, I can change it back later. But I'm pretty sure this is the front side and this is the back side. Usually when the bracing, if there is bracing, it goes on the back side. So I'm going to say that is what it is. And for now, there's law of the land until I have proven wrong. And then we're going to line it up. Of course, I am as blind as they come. There we go. Screw it in. Now, not all the way. You want to make it a little bit loose so you can still see. But I get my trusty flashlight here. He shall be our guide. He shall tell us what we need to know. Ooh, dropped it. Let's see if we can do it right now. There we go, we got it. Alright, working on screw number 3 now, waiting for number 4. And then, when this computer build is done with, I will jump on to my same channels again on Switch, and we shall stream some GTA. Well, it's not really GTA. It is GTA, but it's not a GTA. So it's a more advanced version that's been modded on a server called 5M. There's a program you can download to play all kinds of modded games. And there's this one I really love called Production RP. And it's literally like you're living in the city. You got to feed your character, you got to drink them, the cars need gas, you have to get a job. It's pretty much like a dumbed down version of the real world, but you can actually do some fun there where you can't do it in real life. Because you can break the law. And you're a real person in the world. But the cool thing is your character can also die. So when your character dies, you have to start a whole new character, which is kind of cool. Now, of course, there's kind of like exceptions to that, where like you can say that you technically died, but you say I got rushed to the hospital, someone airlifted me to the hospital, and I quote unquote survived. So it's harder to kill these characters, but technically, yeah, the characters actually can die, and when your character dies, you know how to play it anymore. I have yet to kill off a character, but I'm interested in seeing how it's done. Okay, so the fan is now installed. So now we get to do the fun part. And the fun part is where we put the motherboard in and screw down all those little bitty tiny screws. That's always my favorite part. Now, since this is a micro ATX board, it'll probably only fit, maybe 4 screws, 5 screws, 6 screws, I doubt it. A full one would take like, I believe it's 8 or 9 screws. Got a lot of junk here. I'm good at making a mess when I want to. And these, for now, we shall shove them back in the abyss they came from. Get in the hole. That's what she said. Ooh, Get these out of the way so I can lay her flat and put the motherboard in. There we go. Here's the fun part. Now, when you're building computers, you need a flashlight because you're going to be blind as heck and you ain't going to be able to see nothing. So now I need to figure out how many screws. It looks like I'm only going to be able to do 4 screws. I don't think I'll be able to do any more than that. Actually, no, I'm a liar. You can actually do full 6. That one and that one. But you got to line it up with the I/O shield so that everything fits properly. Don't get goofy with me, you. I got stuff dropping all over the place here. Give me a second, y'all. Having some technical difficulties. Alright, gotta line everything up here properly. Get in there. Oh, dagnabbit. No, wait, I installed it right. Just trying to figure out why it's not going in properly. Give me a second. Looks like something's stuck. There it goes. Never mind. Okay, so let's count the screw holes. Got 1, got 2. Looks like they'll be able to fit. And 3, so we're going to be able to do 6 screws, which is good for a micro ATX. But I don't want to take it out, but I got to. Yeah, I got to. Yeah, this is going to be a nice motherboard for this system because the motherboard is tiny, this case is big, everybody wins. Oh Lord, did I make a mess right here? I did. I most certainly did. Get back in there, thank you. Alright, so in between the motherboard and how it hooks onto the case, there are these little spacers, I call them. I've got 2 here. Now you guys ain't gonna be able to see this very well, but there's these tiny little spacers, and it's got a screw in one end and a screw hole in the other, and this separates it, I guess, to ground it properly, or not ground it. I don't know what the right way to do it is, but like I said, I believe a full-size ATX motherboard can handle, what is it, 8 of these screws, I believe, maybe even 9. Aha! I found you. You are there. Now you are here. And since each motherboard, you've got different sizes. You've got mini ITX, you've got ATX, you've got micro ATX, and they have the ITX ones. You've got different size motherboards, and so you have to install the spacers differently for each one, so that way it'll screw into the case properly and it won't have any problems. Alright, so now we're going to put the motherboard back in. Hopefully it slides in easier than it did last time. Now line it up here. Okay, once everything lines up, make sure our holes are lined up properly. They are. Yes, we are good to start screwing stuff down, dude. Yeah. Now the toughest one is the one way up here in the corner and the one way over there in the corner too, because it's in a tight spot. That's why I like to use this itty bitty handy dandy screwdriver. And it's got a magnetic tip on it too, so it makes it just that much easier to install these screws. Now these screws are very fine thread, tiny little bitty screws that you screw the motherboard down with. And so you need a very tiny little Phillips head and a good flashlight. And when you use a magnetic bit, it makes it so much easier to screw in. Let's see in a second here. I need to invest in one of those little. Ooh. Need to invest in one of those little screwdrivers that are electric. All right. We got one down. Let's go ahead and knock out the hardest one, which is the one way in the corner over here. Aha. I see you. You cannot hide from me. Now you see, like I said, this is the toughest one because it's way in the corner. It's a very, very tight little spot. So either you're going to cuss or you're going to have the patience to get it in there. Or a little bit of both. I have yet to get it started. This is what I said. You got to have the patience. There we go. Now I get it started. Just got to screw it in the rest of the way. Yeah, only two of the screws are really complicated. They're not complicated, but they're a little tough just because of where they are. That's why I recommend a long, skinny Phillips head screwdriver. That's going to be your best friend for 90% of these installs. If I had an electric one, I could make some cool noises and make it go by much, much faster. But unfortunately, I cannot afford that. No, I just haven't gotten around to buying one yet, that's all. Alright, so the two hardest, well, one of the hardest of the two screws. Now we're about to do the second one. Now, if you're an older person trying to do this, I very much highly recommend you invest your money in a back brace. Because this gets painful after a while. Get in there. I said get in there. Never mind, this is the toughest one right here, y'all. It's one to fight. We got to get our hands dirty here. A little bit of, I would say elbow grease, but it ain't gonna help nothing because it's in a tight spot. Ah, crackeroli. Where'd you go, baby? Where'd you go? I lost the screw. I lost it overboard. She is gone, y'all. Give me, do some rattling around here. She's here somewhere. That's another thing you don't want. You don't want a loose screw because you can short something out or fall in a weird spot. Or all right, y'all, give me a second here. Let me readjust myself. You are coming out of that case, screw. Ah. Where'd you go? Where did you go? Give me a second, y'all. Well, it's gone. It's gone like the wind, y'all. Maybe it's on a table somewhere from Lucky. Well, I hope I find it. I seriously hope I find it. I don't see it in here, no ass. So, we're going to pretend like that screw doesn't exist. Y'all saw nothing? Hopefully it makes an appearance at some point in the future. Because we're going to try again with that same screw hole. Maybe if I'm lucky, my wife will step on it at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'll be like, oh, there's that screw. That's through. No, it's not that small. It'll be bigger than that. Go ahead and turn the lights on. Babe, turn the lights on, please. The lights. Yeah. Hey, everybody, you can actually see me now. Yeah, that's the point. Donde está es oscuro? The weird thing is I don't hear it rattling around or nothing. It just kind of disappeared. When you think you'd hear it, I'm not hearing rattling at all. Oh well, it's gone. I tried. I'm not gonna cry over spilled screws. That was an electronic joke if y'all got that. It's funny. My wife got it. I'm turning her into a super dog. I love how they stuck a capacitor right next to the screw hole, so if you make a mistake, you can bend this capacitor over and your motherboard no longer works. There we go. Okay, guys, just a few more screws and then we shall be ready to do the fun part. And you're like, I thought you already were doing the fun part. No, we are not doing the fun part. The fun part is when the cable management comes into play. Got 20,000 wires to plug in. Ooh, you can do it, bro. I believe in you. Well, gosh darn it. There we go. Just had to get everything in the right position. Okay. Two more to go. Yabba dabba dooba baba dabba dabba doo. Almost there. One more, y'all. One more. Stay with me. You can do it. Well, it's a good thing I'm not a surgeon, man. I'd be killing people. Okay, motherboard is officially locked down. She is tight. She is not going anywhere. That is a good thing. Now, hopefully, that M.2 gets recognized as legitimate storage. Because I'm pretty sure this can take, I'm not sure, I don't even remember if that's NVMe or not. Because some motherboards don't have NVMe support, especially like the cheaper ones, because it's newer technology and it just doesn't necessarily support it just yet. So if this is NVMe, sometimes it probably won't recognize the storage when I go to install Windows. Then I would have to switch to another storage device. But the good thing is I've got another M.2, which I know is a regular M.2, and then I also have an SSD and a backup hard drive. So I've got plenty of other options on hand if this one doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, then hey, I'll just put it in the newer system when I do a nicer build. That's all. Okay, now here comes the fun part. Cable management. This is where 90% of people who do their home builds screw up. Well, not 90%, but I'd say about 75. There's about 75% of people that build the computer, they're like, oh, I'm building a computer for myself. And the other 25% are, everything has to be perfect, everything has to be in the right spot, or for people like me who are building them literally just for fun, and then I'm going to turn around and sell it, make a little bit of profit on it, and then buy me another set to build. And I care about it looking pretty because I take pride in this. This is not my day job, but I wish it was. All right. All right, so the mistakes we make when we install things. Shoo ho ho ho. I always forget about these things. I'm not sure if that'll fit, but it's worth a try to see. Alright guys, I gotta unscrew some screws that I just screwed in, the tough ones. Because I forgot, you gotta run certain cables in certain spots before you screw things down.